Hi everyone. Hi Sebastian. Today we will be speaking with Sebastian Galiani, who is Mancur Olson Professor of Economics at the Department of Economics at the University of Maryland. And we are in Kiev. Sebastian is here. And why are you here?
All right. First, thank you for the invitation to this talk. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm here because I'm supporting Ukraine, and I hope for a democratic solution to the Russian invasion. And since it happened, many academics express in the social media their views, but over time that lose continuity, right? And
Becomes repetitive. People kind of lose interest maybe a little bit.
Yeah, and also I'm not a big fan of just talking a lot in the social media. I like more to do something.
To
right?
do something real in physical world.
Real, exactly. And also, I'm from Argentina. There are, in the early 90s, two private universities similar to this one were created. I was part of both. Still, I'm in the board of one of them. I try to help them. I'm very proud of how they grew. And so I always been interested a lot more in helping developing the academia outside the U.S. than the U.S. In the U.S., my impact is marginal, right? It's very marginal, but in other countries could be much larger. So when I get to know through Konstantin Sonin that he was coming and that others professors could come and could be very helpful, I immediately say, yeah, I'm going.
So he actually reached out to you, or it was your idea?
No. He posted in Twitter. I saw that, and I emailed him, and he put me in contact with Timothy.
With Timofiy Brick, our rector, yeah.
Yes, and then I offered to come, and I have research funds to pay for my ticket, so. And then we went back and forth on what was the best time for me to come and how my visit could be more helpful. So at the end, I ended up co-teaching a class in health economics, and that was the original plan. Then another professor from Pittsburgh that is coming, Jennifer
Murtazashvili.
Yeah, came with the idea that because some other professors will end up visiting through the year, to put a class about that is open also to students from other universities and journalists. For example, when I gave that talk, I ended up talking a lot with a student of journalism from another university, but that she's planning to do economics because she wants to do journalism and economics. It was very interesting, and this was about the prospects of reform for Ukraine. And obviously, I wasn't an expert, so I did quite a bit of reading since then to give
How much
these lectures.
did you have to read, by the way, to prepare?
Well, fortunately, there was a very nice volume put by several scholars. It's a book. Basically, it's a book I read. I do some research in geopolitics, so it's not that I was totally not knowing what was going on. I was quite aware, but still, it was useful in terms of the details to see how other economists were thinking. I kind of agree with the main message they put. I didn't agree with everything they say, and I.
What's the main message that you maybe your interpretation or your spin on the main message?
Yeah, I think the main message is the main message in the book, but I'll say it even stronger. Is that the road ahead is to get full access to the European Union. I think that's the most important movement for the country, and also it's very important that Europe supports that, make it feasible, right? It doesn't just go by the book, dot by dot.
Not bureaucratic. Make
Yeah,
it a
because
realistic path
because
forward.
in the book they put a
So,
lot of emphasis in that to get there, Ukraine has to do judicial reform because corruption is a concern in Europe. I mean, in Argentina, there's a lot of corruption too. In many countries, there's a lot of corruption, and obviously, it's fine to aim for judicial reform and to have a more competitive political system, aiming to reduce corruption. But the point is that a judicial reform is not like a trade liberalization or some changes in the financial system. It's something that can take more than 10 years, right? You have to essentially train judges, a new generation of them. It's not easy to replace them. They have stability. And this is, I'm going to get back to this issue, but essentially, I don't think Ukraine's future will be helped more if it's not getting accession to the European Union until it completes a very large list of reforms that could take 10 years, right? So there has to be a roadmap, there has to be evaluations, there has to be, but there has to be a clear way to get Ukraine fast into the European Union, because that's gonna open a large window of opportunities for the country, and also because the country needed, because it needs to support now a much stronger army. It needs to be it needs to have a stronger economy as a result.
so your take is quick accession is important, has to be feasible, reforms are important, but should not slow down the process, and that will give access, or it will benefit Ukraine in other ways.
It will benefit Ukraine enormously, how in the same way it benefits Poland and other countries, right? But Europe has to be flexible, and because also it will be better for Europe to have a larger Europe that aims for liberal democracies in peace. Even though we know that liberal democracy is not a stable equilibrium. We are seeing that in Hungary, in Slovakia, in Poland too. But we have to navigate those problems, right? We cannot just get scared and close back to the more to the richer Europe, because the countries more towards the east present this challenge. We have to help them to navigate those challenges and end up being true liberal democracies.
The irony here is that some of these Eastern countries, which have recently become less of democracies, Hungary, or even the recent elections in Slovakia, which brought Robert Fico to power with a very clear authoritarian, anti-West, anti-Ukraine, pro-Russian statements, they could be in the way for the EU to accept Ukraine.
Sure. It is a problem, and also I don't think Poland, for example, should get in the way, because at the end they should prefer to have a country with whom they have a large border, more integrated to Europe, and not only dealing, sending people to Poland, right? But yeah, it's an issue. What I'm saying is that there are the richest and more important countries get unified beyond this idea, and provide incentives even to those governments to change their behavior, right? Europe, above all, is about incentives. Let's take the case of Greece, right? When they have this huge crisis, they essentially avoided defaulting on the debt because of the help of Europe. And even, but the population didn't want to do the adjustment, and they even voted to leave the euro. But the government became seriously realistic and say, look, this is the only chance we have to have a big market in which we can specialize and develop. And they went even, and they stayed even against the vote of the public, right? What England did is a total disaster, really, for them. It's not good for Europe in general, but in this particular case, England has been extremely supporting of Ukraine, and that I see as a really positive outcome.
Why do you think the United Kingdom is so supportive of Ukraine?
Well, I think basically United Kingdom always needed two things, right? Because being a small island, peace and trade. And I think historically Russia was a threat to the peace of England. And they had a peace and trade in the European Union, and they quit. So now I think they were expecting to get more integration with the US. They didn't got that, and now they are rethinking how to be key players in Europe.
Okay. So you also have been in the government in Argentina. And so you're not just an economist, you're also a politician or policymaker. Not politician in the sense that you were in the parliament, but you were in a very powerful cabinet position as a deputy minister in Argentina. How was it?
Well, it was a good experience. Argentina is a country with a really, really problematic economy, right? It used to be a country that was among the 10, 15 richest countries in the world. Now it's in the middle of the table. It's a middle-income country. But it has had a very volatile, unstable macroeconomy. And that's the result of its polity, right? It's always the result of polity in all countries. We cannot talk about economics without understanding the polity, and we cannot understand the polity without understanding the economic situation, right? They jointly determine, but they are essentially, we are into this situation where there is a left populist segment of the population between 30-40%, more reformist, liberal, democratic 30-40% of the population, and then those in the middle that sometimes go with one, sometimes go with the other, and so we keep swinging from one into the other. And the broad picture is that the left populists essentially destroy the economy, and then when the reformists take the government, as it was in 2015, the government for which I serve, you get a very bad situation, right? Very large fiscal deficit, high inflation, all prices distort, exchange rate, price of energy, the economy very close to trade. And you have to adjust all that in a presidential system in which the presidency lasts for 4 years, and there is a midterm election in the second year. So essentially, it's very difficult because you have to do things that will be resisted by large segments of the population, like increasing the price of energy or transport or opening the economy. But you have to do it, right? Because you cannot sustain those deficits. And then, if you lose the midterm election, then the Asians will know that the populists are coming back, and then the economy collapses immediately because, for example, the stock market collapse immediately, capital inflows are stopped. But anyway, I was invited to do some specific things because the minister of the treasury was a friend from the university, but he did his career in the financial system, so he basically knew what to do in terms of the macro, but he had a mandate to do a tax reform and a pension reform, so he called me to design them. So that's what I did, and we passed them in Congress. And it turns out that then I was, you can be deputy minister and say, oh, I'm only doing the technical part. I end up going on TV, on the news. I end up going to Congress a lot to defend the reform. So I end up being a policymaker.
Policymaker,
yeah. A policymaker.
And actually, a politician too, because you defend the policy.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Was it tough? Were you attacked? Was there unfair or fair media campaign around you? I was a minister once. I hated media campaigns by oligarchs against me. Do you have the same in Argentina?
Actually, no. I didn't have. Of course, there were attacks from, let's say, the more a group of the population that wanted mostly some economies, the fiscal adjustment to go faster. But this was a government with minority in both chambers. So the things we could do were limited, right? And it's hard to that's something I wanted to come back from a previous question is, I think one of the main lessons I got from being in government is we have to teach to economists a lot more about the Constitution and the laws and how the legal system also constrains what you can do, right? And because for example, one of the things that had increased a lot the public expenditures was a large expansion of the pension system that the populists did before, right? To people that did not contribute, and they gave it a pension anyway. So many economists came to my office and say, no, just
don't do it.
Take it back. And I say, it's illegal. It was, you don't like the policy. I may not like it, but it was done by a law passed in Congress. So they now have rights. We may do a reform, and the reform can change the financial path of the system towards the future. But we cannot just undo the reforms that were done before. And for them, it was not that simple to understand something that in my mind was obvious.
There is a saying that good economics is bad politics and good politics is bad economics, which gets at exactly this question, that there are political constraints which often we ignore when we derive our notions of best or feasible economic policies. Okay, yeah.
No, I mean that essentially we in the West, we like to live also in a liberal order at the country level. But I don't want to be naive, right? Because some of the people, one thing is to what we want, others to understand how the real world is. In the real world, we know that sovereignty has to be defended. There's no court at which you go and say, oh, my sovereignty was violated and the court restored. It doesn't work like property rights within a country, right? And what I mean is that essentially the democratic countries of the West need to support Ukraine to recover its territories, ideally, and get the country to be, as I say, through a path of reform, being democratic.
I see. What's your impression of the war? You're in Kiev. Do you see much of it? Well, Kiev is well protected now. It's not the last year. Air defense is good here, but have you seen have you experienced the attacks? Were you afraid coming here? What's your reaction? What's the main surprise?
No, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid. Obviously, the night before, I have some, thoughts.
Anxiety a little
Yeah,
bit, yeah.
especially because when I was departing, my wife was really worried. But no, I wasn't afraid. I basically knew that the situation in Kiev. Uh, I was hardly, so no, not hardly. I was very happy to see how the city is vibrant right now, right? Actually, I've been here for a week in 2018, and I see the city pretty much the same right now. The war, you sense the war anywhere because there is these calls to the barracks. So I have three of them. But I go there and I not worry. I know that it's just an excess of precaution, really. Uh, so I think that if you infer what's going on from what's going on in Kiev, you see this country is recovering, and probably you feel a sense of optimism about the future when you go out. There's all the people in the streets. Restaurants are full. It looks really as a vibrant city.
Um, what's the biggest surprise, if there is one?
Well, I I I'm not sure.
That's a tough question. Usually, often there is none. But if there's something, if you come up with something, we'll cut it too.
No, but let me. So, more than I think a biggest surprise, I more or less, as I say, knew
What you were getting into.
what I was gonna get into, but also I follow the international relations and geopolitics of this war from the beginning. I know that where the war was happening is not really here, and also it makes sense that it's not here. I don't think the Russians, never though they have any hope to control a city like Kiev, right? So
Well, they tried in the beginning. They were hoping for Kiev to, I guess, fall in the early weeks of the war. To me, that was crazy, actually.
But yeah, but that was crazy. Who knows, right? Why they did it? But very fast they moved to
Exactly.
a more reasonable target from their perspective.
Yes, in the east, where they
Yeah,
already controlled part of the territory,
exactly.
and south from the
Yeah,
Crimea side. Yes.
Yeah. From the war of 2015, 14, which I think the international community, especially United States, made mistakes there by not supporting more Ukraine.
So you think things could have been different with more support? What kind of support could have changed things if in 2014 the world reaction was different? What should have done, in your view? I understand it's counterfactual.
I think we should, the West should have done exactly what it's done this time, is to provide financial support and provide arms to Ukraine. Maybe the political situation in Ukraine was a bit different, and that was a bit more discouraging to the West to do that, because obviously the West is always worried to arm substantially a country that is not clearly an ally, right? So I think this time the situation was more favorable for the West to help. Plus, they realized the mistake they made.
What do you think will happen in this winter in Ukraine? Both in terms of war and economy, and maybe politics too.
Well, I in terms of wars, I see. I don't think I have enough insight to forecast how it's gonna evolve. I think certainly it's not gonna move from where it is, the war, right? So, and I think Ukraine has to start to work with the European Union. The meeting yesterday was very important, even if the Minister of of foreign ministers here in Kiev, in my view, was very important, and also showing a very fast response from Europe for what is happening in the US, right? I
And
think
you mean the situation with the budget
With
and
the
the
situa-
narratives that Ukraine shouldn't get support from some of the kind of marginal so far, but very vocal factions of politicians.
Exactly. Still, I think, while Biden is president, Ukraine will keep receiving the aid because he is committed, and also because taking away some extreme Republicans, the Republican Party is also supporting of Ukraine. So I don't see a risk there, but the message was important. It has to be done fast, and the Europeans did it. Of course, there was not full agreement yesterday, but that's normal too, right? In international negotiations, there's
And
always
in democracies.
yeah, and in
people have different
democracies,
views.
things take time, more meetings, but I think it's important okay. So what I think is important then in terms of politics in Ukraine is that they start to think, okay, how we are gonna build the step-by-step roadmap to get into the European Union, because that's gonna help a lot the economy. Let's remember that there was a lot of reform already in terms of changing the trade of the country, right? This country was trading a lot with Russia. Now it's trading a lot with Europe.
It's the main trading partner.
Yeah.
It's exactly the switch.
Yeah.
Before 2014, the Russian market was the biggest partner. Now it's the EU.
And I think that is also in part obviously is a result of the war, but it's happening before, and is also the result of joining the WTO, and it's something positive to show, right? The country joined the WTO, reduced the tariff, was able to satisfy the requirements, and we've seen the results, which are positive.
What do you think about some protectionist pressures against Ukraine in the countries neighboring with Ukraine? How Ukraine can overcome that? Poland, of course, was in the news recently about the grain disagreeing with the EU Commission on the import bans. But there are also other countries. So what do you think Ukraine can do to avoid or to overcome or mitigate this friction?
Well, I don't think it's Ukraine that can do as much as the whole European Union, right? There has to be sort of when, as I say before, when the most important countries like Germany, France, and even England, although it's not in the Union anymore, work out step by step the full accession of Ukraine, has also to provide incentives to the countries that are more resistant to change the way they behave.
Okay, fair enough. So I want to go back for a second to your teaching. You teach a health economics course here. Yeah. My concern is, as we talk, there are so few students there because it's a master class. In an undergraduate class, you would have so many more, and I feel a little bit upset about it, frankly, because you come here and you bring all this knowledge, and we do not expose enough of your knowledge to enough people in Ukraine. But what did you teach them there in the class?
Well, I teach six lectures of a class that is 14 lectures, so it was kind of half the class. And I teach them what I think is the most important topics in health economics, which it's the reason why I teach health economics, because it's about market failures and the best microeconomic analysis that we have, right? Which is the demand for insurance when people is risk averse, the problem of insurance markets that suffer from adverse selection and moral hazard, and then the externalities that exist in health economics, right? So those were the topics. I wasn't, I have to tell you, in the US, it's normal to teach a grad class with 5, 6 students. It's
That's
just
true.
normal.
I've been in classes like that myself, and I've taught classes like that so many times in grad school. I agree, but nonetheless, I want more.
Yeah. So in that sense, it wasn't a problem for me, and I was very happy that students told me they really enjoy the class and they learn.
This is true. I've heard from the students very good. They're actually very happy that you are here, and they even say, it's like this is. I don't want to do self-promotion, but we bring people like you to students, and other universities don't always bring students like that. And I think it's important that we are part of global community of academics, professors, and practitioners too, not just focused on Ukrainians. So we try to bring very diverse people to Kiev to teach.
But yesterday I also gave a lecture in I think it's a macro class in the MBA too.
Yes, that's right. How did that go?
That went quite well. There was many questions, students very interested. And I started talking about macroeconomics in Argentina, more or less explain what we talked before. And then there were analogies to Ukraine, and from there we moved to the global economy, how at the end things are determined politically. It was a very interesting class, and there they have like 60 students.
60?
Yeah.
6-0.
6-0.
In MBA.
Yeah, I think that's the first year, and I heard that in this year there was a huge inflow.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's 2.8 times increase in admissions in MBA and 3.5 in bachelors. Mm-hmm. So the numbers are really staggering. But yeah, 60 in an MBA class. So it looks like everyone came.
Yeah.
And were they offline, online, mixed?
No, yeah, that class was by Zoom.
By Zoom.
By Zoom. Health was hybrid, right? Some students were in the room and others were in Zoom.
And this economic recovery class was in person?
It was in person, and that was open, as I say, to public, and there were many journalists, and there was a large group. Yeah,
there were students outside, and not just students outside of KC. And so these MBA guys are very interactive. It feels that way, right? They ask you questions, right? Yeah. They were not shy.
No. Even they disagree sometimes, and they say that was fine. It's fine.
Interesting. Yeah. It's important that all our graduate school, of course, is known to be very good master students because it's the Kiev School of Economics. It's historical, but the bachelor programs and the MBA are newer programs, and we are paying a lot of attention to ensure that the atmosphere, the vibe there, and the quality of students and faculty is good there. So, okay, so where are you staying? Can I ask questions like that? About just how do you get? You take metro, you take an Uber, you bike. I don't know what you do to get here. Where are you staying? What do you eat?
Sure, I'm staying at the hotel in the city center, and basically I take Uber. It's a short drive. An Uber, I figure it was working really well. I started with Uber the first morning because I didn't have cash, so I wasn't sure I could take a taxi. And then it worked so well that I stayed with Uber. It's 100% reliable. it arrives very fast, always 3-4 minutes delay, so it works well. Normally I've been teaching every day, so I take lunch here
In a cafe?
in the cafe.
So you actually buy food from the cafe?
Yeah, I buy.
Well, me too. I
Yeah.
mean, not everyone does. People bring from home or
Okay.
go somewhere, but I do, yeah.
Yeah. No, I buy in the cafe. Breakfast I have it in the hotel, and sometimes I go for dinner, and sometimes I pass dinner, because normally in the US I pass dinner.
Yeah,
so,
me too. I'm trying. I'm not always successful,
Yeah,
But yes.
yeah.
So-
But there are really good restaurants. For example, there's one they call 15 restaurant. It's really nice and really good. And they had something that not easy to get everywhere, which is cotoleta, which I like it.
Yes.
And then I went to some restaurants with more local food. Here the kebab is great. There's a lot. I have eaten a lot of lamb.
Yes, that's true. Okay. So, have you had a chance to just walk around or get out of Kiev or go in the parks or downtown or?
Yeah, I walk every day, because I walk like an hour per day, and I didn't go out of Kiev, because again I teach every day, and I've been walking downtown. The usual round is like
that's from Khrushchev, Volodymyrsk, Shevchenko. Yeah, me too. I walk there sometimes. I actually grew up in that area, so it's for me it's also nostalgic a little bit. But so is your wife now less worried about your safety here?
Yeah. She's fine now. Yeah,
She's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's important.
Yeah.
We have to have friends, loved ones, family. We have to have them happy. We want them to be happy that you came here, so we can, in the future, invite you and other people.
No, sure. I mean, I guess I have the chance to talk again to Tiffany, to other people. I mean, the Department of Geography at Maryland is doing work here, so I knew that that was safe. But still, for my wife, that she works in the financial sector, it was like, oh, we are going to a war zone.
That sounds scary.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There are no legal issues or anything at the university?
Fortunately, no. I have to ask permission. The office of the dean say, no, we don't recommend it, but they didn't say no. So, I play by saying, if you say no,
Then
I can go. And that's what I did.
The irony, I'm on faculty at Pittsburgh and I'm on leave.
Yeah.
Because I'm here.
Yeah.
And at the same time, their legal departments often don't recommend or sometimes even say no. And at the same time, I'm formally on leave because why? Because I'm here.
Right.
So both are possible where the university says, yeah, you can do it.
Yeah.
And the university says you cannot do it.
Right.
Yeah. So
no, but as long as they didn't say you cannot go, I mean, my chair, Andrew Sittin, he say you can go, take care. It's a great public service for the profession, and he was happy, so I did it.
So I want to conclude with this, with the future of academia in Ukraine and elsewhere. I agree with you. It's a great public service. And that's how I got involved in at the Kiev School of Economics, and over time became more and more involved. You mentioned there were two schools, two private schools some time ago in Argentina, and you are still on the board of one of them.
Yeah.
How did they develop? What are the parallels and what are the differences? Is there any insight that would be useful for us?
Well, they were private. In one case, one family was the main donor, and they used to have a research institute, and they then create the university. They gave a large part of their wealth to the university. The other was created by the Scottish community. They had, for a very long time, one of the best schools, primary and secondary, and then they create the university. And then these universities try to hire, good professors. That's the difference with others that do research. So they value research. They promote people to tenure based on research. So in that sense, follows the American system, and I'm very sympathetic to that. The only thing I like to see sometimes a bit more is an integration with their own societies, not to be that focused on the U.S. academia, right? Because I think these universities could be very valuable for the discussion, right, in the media, in the political system. And so some research that is local may not be published in the best journals or in good journals, but it's very important to be done. And so that, if it were my decision, I still will ask people to publish in good journals and promote based on that, but I also will reward people engaging, maybe after tenure, but engaging in public service and in doing research that is local.
Yeah, we are trying to do that. We have both. I just checked today. We give between 30 and 70 interviews a month on TV, just TV alone, Ukrainian TV. But we're still struggling because often faculty is truly focused on research, and they're not the ones who are willing to give interviews. And then researchers or people who do policy making, consult the government, they are given the research. So we are finding our ways to integrate them more and leverage the synergies.
Right.
So thank you for coming to Ukraine, and I hope the school and you will be friends.
Sure. My pleasure, and I look to further collaborations.
Thank you very much.
Bye.